Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
To introduce our speaker, Eddie Steve from Glendora.
Anyway, good evening. My name's Ed. I'm an alcoholic. Pretty glad to be here. Hey, man, that's far out, baby. This cat's an audiophile, sound dude like me. I'm digging Benny Webster all day long. Yeah, him and Reggie. Yeah. Yes, sir. Anyway, I see the rest of the groups here. Anyway, I'm always glad to be any place. You know, when you get to a certain age, you get excited about little things like waking up. I don't know if any of you ever reached that age. One of the things you never do when you get my age is buy green bananas. She brought some home the other day, scared the hell out of me. I thought I'd never see them turn yellow, you know. But anyway, we got a guy here who's been here a long time, you know, and I've been here a while, too. As a matter of fact, it's 44 years, 5 months, and 9 days. The years have been a breeze. Some of the days were a bitch. If you're not having any pain and sobriety, you're not working a program. That's all I can tell you, man, you know. I took the fourth step in 2 weeks, and I feel just fine. You didn't take anything in 2 weeks, baby. Because if it don't do that to you, you didn't take it. You know. Yeah, it really is fun just to be any particular place where there are other people trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do. And what it is to keep the obsession to use things and put them in my body to change my the way I feel, you know. Terminologies change, you know. Doctors and psychiatrists, they call them elevate your mood. Don't you love having your mood elevated? Go ahead, Doc, elevate my mood. Oh, goddamn. Can you go up a couple more floors? See, they don't know about us alkies. They will put us on the 4th floor. We're looking for the 9th, you know. And, you know, it takes a long time before you find out that happiness, which is something we all want, you know, is the absence of unhappiness, you know. And I find out now what I did on what you did. I'm looking for happiness with a belly full of unhappiness. I'm trying to make love with hate in my heart. Get in a car, bitch, and I'll show you. You know, that guy. You know what I mean? And I'm the kind of a guy, I was drinking, I woke up to see if there's anybody there. You know? I came in a celibate. I don't know about you. I mean, if you were messing around when you got here, you weren't drinking like I was drinking. You know. My first sponsor, and I had him for 5 years, his name was Jimmy K. Any of you who happen to go to NA would know who Jimmy K. was. He was my sponsor for 5 years, you know, and when I first got here, you know, there were no people in Alcoholics Anonymous that took anything except alcohol. They did not. None of that, pardon the expression, none of that shit. Okay. They didn't. None of that. No reds, whites, blues, purples, you know, rainbow, none of that stuff. And certainly no tracks or rails. None of that. And they thought a geezer was an old man. I tried to explain to them about uppers. They thought I was talking about teeth. I told them I dropped reds. They thought I killed communists. Somebody said, did marijuana hurt you? I said, I don't remember. That's the part of the brain that goes first. Recall. It's called the hippocampus. I love that. I think it's a fine name. If you want to name a part of the brain, hippocampus. Doesn't that sound good? That's the part that goes, yeah. That's the part that goes. That'll cost you $50. I forgot. I got it. Anyway, so I showed up here quite early and I ran into Jimmy K. And the reason I picked him is because he had a lot of time. He had 6 months. You know, it's a funny thing. I don't know if any of you know it. Probably hardly anybody here could have even known Jimmy because he died, gosh, about 12 or 13 years ago. But he ran Narcotics Anonymous out of his house for 20 years, world office, you know. And Jimmy Kennan never drank anything but wine in his entire life. He was a wino. And what makes it so funny, in NA now, they say, we don't talk about alcohol here. And there were 5 members of AA that started the program. How do you like that, huh? If it wasn't for AA, you wouldn't have nothing. And those people who don't talk about alcohol, try it. And they find out a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug. If you think you can get screwed up on heroin, you try Red Mountain. I mean, if you never got into Red Mountain, and throw a few reds in with that. You know. Because you get nummy-wummy. I mean, you get nummy-wummy. You can go potty and not have to get up, and you don't care. And grin. And grin. And nobody there to tell you can't do it. And it's warm for about a minute. But there's something chemical. It's called synergism. You know, you put alcohol together with secanols, and it'll kill you. So I'm not here. I'm dead. I always put them together, didn't you? You know. And sometimes when you mix those things together, it gives you a state of nausea. And there's a term that I like. It's called projectile regurgitation. That means you can hit a fly on a wall. Boom, and you knock them off the wall. And I can remember one time laying in the pad, cool. When you're a heavyweight dude, you know, double hip, slick, and cool, you know. And that's what I was, double hip, slick, and cool, baby. I knew what was, even though I had wet pants and I was regurgitating. Cool is cool. And I remember laying on my back, you know, and going, oh, and I watched that dude go up. It went right up in the air, and I was so numb I couldn't move. And then I watched it come back down. And it hit me in the face. And this is what I said, God damn, I'm having fun. It goes to show you now, there's a little problem with semantics there. If you look in semantics and look up the word fun, it doesn't mean puking on yourself. So if you're still having fun puking on yourself, you got the wrong word. You know. Even nurses don't like it. Oh, you did it again, you know. Did what again, you know? You know, you don't remember 3 minutes ago, you know. Your heart stopped, they bring you back. The doctor says, I don't think you ought to do that again. You turn blue, you know. You look good with a blue head. You ever see me with a blue head? I've had a blue head. As a matter of fact, I'm absolutely convinced, and there's some of you in this room tonight that are like me, the only people who know how high you can really get have overdosed and been brought back. Hey, man, good, NDE. I didn't see no white lights, man, you know. Well, that's gone. They're giving you, stand back, pow. You don't even know it, man. You're having so goddamn much fun, they're trying to get your heart going. And you don't care whether they do or not. You know, maybe they do, you know. Hey, it started your heart, big deal, man. I knew it would start, you know. I took a couple of whites that haven't kicked in yet. I knew you'd like that. closer, I'll kick you in the I go down to center in Lot 20, and he never laughs at my jokes. He just stands there. He says, I heard those in high school. Yeah. I'll tell you where Lot 20 is, but them people in that town are so dumb. They named their town the Bridge, and they don't even know where it is. There isn't anybody in Lot 20 knows where the goddamn bridge is. The Bridge. What a name for a town. Isn't it a name for a town? Not like Glendale. Isn't that pretty? You know? The Bridge. Glenda, please. You know, you just made a friend, whoever you are. He'll loan you $100, he really will. Only about 45% interest. Anyway, so you can see I arrived here at an opportune time. I really did, and I bumped into Jimmy. You know, and one of the things I said to him, because they do it all the time, and I don't care what people call themselves. They can call themselves whatever they want, as long as they stay here. You know, call yourself whatever you want, as long as you stay here. Because when I first got here, nobody used anything but alcohol. They never used the word addict. You know, and when they found out that I used drugs, it kind of gave me status. You know what I mean? I'm not a pants wetter. I was, but, you know, because us dope fiends, we're different. Matter of fact, first time I went to jail, I went to the dope fiend tank. I didn't go over those pants wetters. I'm walking around with them dope fiends, man. You know, hey, baby, what you say, man? Everybody got them Bonnaroos on, you know, them shiny shoes, you know? And talking that talk, looking out the window at all the lames walking by. You ever do that? I've done that, yeah. Look at that guy driving by in a nice brand new car with a blonde sitting with him and a boat on the back. You say, look at them lames, man. And you stand there with a guy doing a bullet, you know, which is here, you know. He was a gaze, you know. When I got there, that's all I was. You know, you wouldn't get me to do that, man. I don't like needles. You know, I did later, but I didn't like needles. And besides, anybody that just smokes marijuana knows that's not really a dope. They really ought to legalize it, I think, you know. Let's put it on the ballot, and let's make marijuana legal. And then we're all going around saying, you don't know my name, do you? Any psychotropic drug in the world makes demands on you, I guarantee you. I guarantee you. I have a baby that happens to be a doctor, and that's what he does. He's chemical dependency. And when he sends them out of that hospital, they're scared to death because they're all sober. You go to other hospitals, and they change the name. Well, I think you're a bipolar. It takes about 36 seconds to make that diagnosis. That'll be $974, and take one every 4 hours. I dare you to take one every 4 hours. Did you ever follow the instructions? I mean, really? Huh? Even aspirin. You know, take 4. It'll really get rid of your headache. I say to my wife, her head hurts. How many you want? She says, keep pouring. She's alky like I have, you know. But can you imagine me coming in at 30 years of age? I had a DA hairdo and a pair of pants up to here, and I wore dark glasses. I called everybody man, including my mother. I did not matriculate, so I did not know what anybody was talking about, you know. Because when you're hip, slick, and cool, you don't need any intelligence. I'm hip, man. People are afraid of that, you know. Hey, man, yeah, I'm hip. Yeah, oh, yeah, you're hip, baby. You know. People leave you alone. That means you know what Einstein was talking about. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, I knew. Well, I'm hip now, yeah. Hell, I can't even pronounce Einstein, you know. How the hell would I know, you know? And the funny thing is, when I first got here, I wanted to let them know that I was different, you know. And I told Jimmy Kennan, I said, Jimmy, but I'm different. He said, that we're all different. Stick around. He said, that's why we're here, because we're different. We're all different, so we stay here together. I said, and I said, none of them did that. He said, don't make any difference. I said, why can't I call myself an addict? He said, you think that if you come in here wetting your pants and just drinking booze, that you're not addicted to alcohol? What would that make you if you were addicted to alcohol? That would make me an alcohol addict. Well, then you're already an addict. I said, what does that mean? He said, if you say addict alcoholic, Ed, you're being tautological. I said, what in the hell are you talking about? He said, you're being redundant. I said, what in the hell are you talking about? He said, you're reiterating. I said, what in the hell are you talking about? He said, you're saying the same thing more than once. I said, why in the hell do you say so? I wasn't too swift. I was slick and cool, you know, I can't, but I'm not very bright. You know. I'm like the guy that takes his daughter, I love that guy, he takes his daughter to school and they're both in the 4th grade, you know, I love that. I love that. I love that. I won't talk about the dog. Don't talk about the dog. But that's kind of the way I was. I got loaded early, you know, and you don't need education to get loaded, you know. It's just taking something more, something, you know, there's always something else, you know. I was talking to a guy tonight that said somebody gave him birth control pills. He took them before the meeting, and the funny thing about it was he said it worked. He never got pregnant since, you know. And I swear to God, my wife had the same thing happen to her. I had some wise ass give me rabbit pellets, and I dropped them, man. I won't tell you what I said. That's good shit, man. No, I really did. I took them. You know, when you're as loaded as I am, you don't say, what is it? Does it have side effects? You're hoping it does. You know. You know, can you imagine, you know, at an early age and you walk in and everybody's old. I mean, they are old. There were some in their 40s. One old toddler in his 50s. Oldest person in the group had 5 years. I heard about this old gal who had been sober forever. She had 10, that was Sybil. She got 55 now, you know. Sybil, I remember her for years, old Sybil. You remember her when she was moving? She's got Alzheimer's right now, but when she was moving, she's up there, you know, 50 years sobriety, and she's up there going, hey, baby, what's happening to Cape House? Oh, keep coming back, you know. Yeah, she really did, you know. And I thought to myself, man, I couldn't believe it. Now, my first experience, and I used to have a word, I don't use it anymore, except in a satirical way, and that's coincidence. I coincidentally happened to go to my first meeting, was a speaker meeting, and it was Chuck Chamberlain. Now, that's what I call a coincidence. Because if you've been loaded on everything that's been presented with you, and you see some guy getting up there saying, hi, y'all! My name's Chuck, I'm an alcoholic. You know that dude's on something. Last time I saw him alive was about 3 months before he went into the next room. That's what he called it. I told him what he said. It got my attention. If you happen to be, you know, into drugs or something like this, this will get your attention. He looked out over the audience while he was talking, and he had that light in his eyes, and he said, it's terrific. Well, you know. You ever shot any geese, any really good stuff? Oh, God, that's terrific. Or even drink bourbon like my mother used to drink. Rot gut bourbon, you know. Corby's. You ever drink any Corby's? Oh, God, you know. Ooh, the toilet wouldn't even take it. I mean, it was bad booze. Bad booze, you know. My mother would drink it. She'd go, and she said, oh, God, that's terrific. Well, that's what Chuck said. He said it's terrific. Well, you don't tell a dope fiend it's terrific. I want some. What you saying, baby? And then that's where I met Jimmy Kay, my first meeting. And I asked him, I said, what's this old dude taking, man? Well, Chuck must have been 48, man. That's ancient. You know. He's talking about sex, you know. He said he's not taking anything. I said, oh, wait a minute, man. I mean, I've seen some pretty far out dudes. This guy is way out. What's he on? What's he on, man? He's not on anything. I said, well, how come he feels so good? What's he taking? He's not taking anything. I said, well, what's he doing? He said, he feels that way not because of what he's taking, he feels that way because of what he's giving. I said, well, you're going to have to run that by me just one more time. You mean I give you my joint, you smoke it, and I feel good. That makes sense, you know. And the great paradox of Alcoholics Anonymous is a 180-degree turn. In other words, if you don't find a brand new spanking way of life that you've never experienced before, you won't stay here. Because pretty soon you get tired of the bumper stickers. You know. Easy does it. You're giving the old lady a lot of crap. On the back of your bumper it says, easy does it, you know. Easy does it is not a bumper sticker. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, I learned, you know, when you get over 40 years sobriety, you just, well, goddamn, maybe this thing's going to work, you know? And it took me 40 years to find out Alcoholics Anonymous is not speaking at meetings. Hell, I used to talk all over the country all the time. That's all I ever did. I can't figure out now what the hell I was talking about, because all I ever did was talk all over the country. Now, what the hell do you talk about when you talk about all over the country all the time? Oh, I was in Alabama last week, you know. That's what I used to do, you know. And I find out now Alcoholics Anonymous had nothing to do with talking from podiums. Matter of fact, you're more apt to have less if that's all you can do. Then it's the guy at the back door greeting the newcomer. That's the guy that's that's the guy that's carrying the message, you know, not the big speaker tonight. Oh man, you know, that kind of stuff. Who's speaking? Who cares? Check his breath, if he's sober, you know. And that's what I found out when I came here, you know. And I found out that, hell, I didn't know anything. And when I came here, I don't know about you, but I was a moron. When I got here, I was a moron. Then I was around here about 15, 20 years. Man, I was going all over the country, man, different states, Canada, Alaska, Hawaii, man, I mean, the banquet speaker. And then I became an oxymoron. An oxymoron in AA is a famous speaker in an anonymous organization. Now that takes a lot of ego, baby. You know what I mean? Because I one time talked up in Victorville. Now you get out there, you got lizards, you know, and horny toads and stuff. You get into that little club in there, and you kick that horny toad and sit down, you know. And I was sitting there with another guy. We both had suits and ties on, you know. One guy said, "You boys must be the speakers." Everybody else was real comfortable and relaxed, and here we are with we either the speakers or pallbearers someplace, you know. Somebody said, why don't you wear a tie? I said, I don't have one. Why would I buy a tie? I don't use one. Would it do something for me? Will it help me? I always feel like when I put a tie on, I'm tied to the building. Don't you ever get that feeling? Take your son of a bitch off, I'm dying, man. You know, can you imagine, you know, somebody like Sammy Davis Jr., had he have gotten here, tell him, you can't wear those clothes here when you speak. We want you to put on a suit and a tie. You know, can you imagine little Sammy? I talked in a group in San Diego for 20 years, and the last time they asked me to talk down there, they sent me a letter, and they said, women wear dresses and men wear ties. I sent my baby. I didn't have a tie. I mean, don't tell me how to dress, God damn it. If you don't like the way I'm dressed, that's your problem. I like the way I'm dressed. I'm comfortable, you know. This is the only place in the world. I had a baby that was 20 years over, and he died of the Campbell disease. I don't know if you know about the Campbell disease, but he died of the Campbell disease. I just love this little son of a gun. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He was my baby. He had 20 years. And he used to always say something, the last 3 or 4 times I ever heard him share. And he always said this, and it really is loaded when you stop and think about it. He said there are probably no other set of circumstances in life for anybody except the circumstances that are presented to you and I. In other words, we are not looking for a new way of life, a better way of life. We're forced in here because we're dying. You know, our asses are falling off. We're dying. What time are the sleepers? And that kind of stuff, you know. We come in here and instead, we don't stop drinking. Alkies can't stop drinking. It's impossible. You know, the obsession disappears. Someone once said, don't leave before the miracle. When the obsession leaves, that's the miracle. Now this thing up here can think. I think I'll go across the street and get back in the same day, you know. One of my dearest friends named Jimmy, you know, Jimmy Emanuel. You remember Jimmy Emanuel? He was I said, Jim, what tickles you? He said, I can cross the street unaided. And I know, because I used to get the DT so goddamn bad, I'd wait for some little kid to take me across the street. And hell, I was only about 27, you know. I mean, I whipped and jingled, man. And I'd walk into that liquor store and I'd say to that guy, hey, man, I need some cold wine for dinner. And of course I hadn't had a bath in a week, and I looked terrible, and my face was red, and I haven't been out in the sun, you know what I mean? And then I got one smart guy. It always seems like they're Jewish guys that work in there. I don't know, I have nothing against Jewish people, but they're always psychiatrists that are moonlighting. And they'll look at you and they'll say to you, what do you want? I'll have an ice cream bar. What do you think of that, you know? And so one of them one day gave me a bottle of wine with a cork in it. And I'm going to have my spaghetti dinner right around the corner under a sign. And I got out there and I took that bottle out of there and I went down. I went, ah! And I remember an old John Wayne movie and I figured I'll take a chance. Oh. Yeah, I died. It killed me. Yeah. It killed me. Well, you know, you don't have much brains if you're killing yourself anyway. What difference does it make? I one time met a guy named Larry Bacon. God, he was tough on this newcomer. I said, why do you talk to him like that? He said he's killing himself anyway. A few words isn't going to hurt him. Used to be one gal who used to come here all the time. God, she'd get all dressed up. Man, I mean, she was built. Oh, man. This was the North Hollywood group, which is used to be the movie actor group, you know. All the movie actors came out there. And this one gal, she'd come in, she'd be sober about 3 months, and she'd fall madly in love. You know, as soon as the pain left, she fell in love. Then she'd go off somewhere, make passionate love to this guy, and then they'd go to a motel, then she'd get drunk. Then she'd come back. Then she'd stay 3 or 4 months, and then she'd get madly in love with some guy. She did this about 6 times. And she finally went up to Larry. She said, Larry, what do I got to do to stay sober? He said, lady, you either got to learn to do it sober or give it up. I used to love Larry. Larry used to lay some heavy stuff. He laid one on me that I have never forgotten. We were talking about it this morning. He said, the enemies within, left unattended for any long periods of time, will eventually rise up and kill you. That's your one-day-a-week meeting guy. You know, they don't know the enemy's got them. They don't even know it. They've been to a meeting. They think, hey, screw that old broad. I don't need this old lady. I'll go get me a new one, you know. Then I'll treat her better. You know, come on. You know, if a jerk leaves somebody, the jerk shows up to somebody else's house, you know. Nothing's changed. But here in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're forced into a way of life that I don't think is available, as my friend used to say, to anybody else in the world. It really isn't. Because I didn't come here to learn to love, you know, I didn't come here to learn to love. I just didn't want to... I weighed 118 pounds, you know. I could hear my heart stopping all the time. There it goes again. There it goes again. That drives you nuts, you know, when all you can hear is your heart stopping, you know what I mean? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And the one thing that I remembered, the guy and I met the guy who started to sing, and his name was Maury Silvers. And Maury had a saying. He never ever spoke from a podium. They'd call him clear back from the North Hollywood clubhouse all the way up. He'd come all the way up there and he'd say, hi, my name's Maury, I'm an alcoholic, keep coming back. It's the only thing he ever said. Reach at the door, keep coming back. So he started becoming, keep coming back Maury, and eventually it became an expression in Alcoholics Anonymous. It started with Maury. Now, you couldn't get in that club without Maury getting your hand and shaking it. How are you tonight, you know? He never got on the podium. He carried the message to more people on an individual basis than people who go all over the world, you know, because you don't know who they are. You know, they go up to the room. I can remember talking at a convention one time in Texas. There must have been 5,000 people there, you know. The governor of the state was there. What the hell he was doing there? Maybe it was an alky, I don't know. You know, Chuck Chamberlain was a Sunday morning spiritual speaker, and while I'm talking, he eats my damn dessert. I said, why'd you eat my dessert? He said, you didn't need it. That's what he told me, you know. You know, and all these people are out there. You know, they're all over the place, you know. Just masses of humanity. And that kind of gives you a warped idea that maybe you've got something to say. And I find out it isn't what you say in Alcoholics Anonymous. It means diddly squat. What we do in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what's diddly squat, you know. I have learned here that Alcoholics Anonymous has nothing to do with meetings, has nothing to do with talking, has nothing to do with 12-step calls. That's all part of the deal. That's part of, like making a cake. Don't forget the sugar, don't forget it all goes in. You'll get no cake if you don't put it all in there. Put that egg in there, you know, and all that kind of stuff. What Alcoholics Anonymous is what we do after we leave here and between meetings. That's AA. What you do between meetings, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. In other words, my sponsor, old Chuck C., I had him for 30 years for a sponsor. And he always says to me, you've got just as much AA program as you take home. And I said, Jesus Christ, man, my wife doesn't understand any of this stuff. That was my first wife. She don't even like AAs. You know, what am I going to do, sit around and look at her all day long? She don't know what the hell I'm even talking about, you know. I'm quoting the book to her like I knew what I was talking about. She don't understand, so her and I, we went different paths, you know. And the reason I told Jenny, when Jenny and me got married, we've been married almost 19 years now, and I'd known her since 1964. We went over to see my first wife because she got lung cancer. We went over to visit her. And I was telling her on the way home one day, you know, I would have loved her the way I loved you if I'd have known how. I didn't have the time, or I didn't know how, you know. I mean, important people don't have time to love people. Man, I got to be in Burbank tomorrow night. See y'all later, you know. You know, that's not what it's all about, you know. What do I do now? Ha ha ha! I've gone through 3 secretaries getting to this meeting. They asked me a year ago. And the reason for that is, last year I was going to 3 meetings, to talk 3 meetings a month, on the weekend. Now it's 2. I had a 20-pound malignant tumor removed. 20-pound malignant tumor, and my right kidney. And I told the guy, that's enough. Then they put me on dialysis for 6 weeks, you know. 3 hours and a half a day, 3 days a week, you know. I want to tell you, you get awful spiritual after a while. And I want to tell you something. All of a sudden, I began to find out, you know, that that's not what it was all about. So I started backing off. I only do what I can do. I don't mow lawns. I watch other people mow lawns. I go for a walk. I do a 30-minute fast walk. And I'm out there walking by, and I'm watching all these homeowners out there every week, out there just mowing their little buns off and cutting the weeds, and I'm watching them, and I think to myself, I'm going to go home and dig some sound, man, while this guy mows his lawn. I got stereo, I got all that power in there, you know, and I got what I want to hear, you know. I can dig a little Miles Davis, man. Got a little Miles going in there. Yeah, a little Miles Davis in there. Got all that good stuff, man. Before I came down here, my meditation, believe it or not, you know, I wasn't talking to Jesus. Don't even know the dude, you know. I was laying on the couch listening to Ben Webster play ballads. An hour and a half of Benny Webster playing a tenor saxophone like nobody in the world ever played a tenor saxophone. And I want to tell you, when that was over with, whew, I didn't need a car to get down here. That was fantastic, you know. Absolutely fantastic. Isn't it wonderful that you can get a life out of Alcoholics Anonymous, where you can enjoy what you're doing? You can even get paid for doing what you enjoy doing. I've seen people do it here. I've seen people come in here with no education. My wife never finished high school. Too busy. Never made it. Never made it. And when she got sober, after she'd been around for a little while, her mother told her she was stupid and ugly, and she believed it. And this stupid, ugly girl went down and took a GED test. And she almost fainted. She passed it. So then she said, I think I'll go up to Citrus College. And, what do you want to be? I think I'll be a teacher. So she talked to a counselor up there. Teacher said, well, you'll be 53 when you graduate. She said, I'm going to be 53 anyway. Remember, you got to learn to learn. She hadn't learned a long time, so she had to learn to learn. You got to dance to the professor's tune, whatever that is. You dance to his tune. He runs the class, not you. Yes, sir. You know, you're not. If you're real young, you just should give him a little knee. They'll give you an extra grade. You know. Remember that little girl sitting in the front row? She got A's all the time. Yeah. Yeah. It really is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And Jenny got her grades over there. She's running around 3.8, 3.9, something like that. So she got a bunch of grants. And then she really got brazen. She started to go out to the University of Laverne to get some degrees. You know? Now, I saw her graduate with degrees running out of her ears. They're all over the damn wall. It just makes me embarrassed when I go back in there. Because she's got the whole wall over there covered with degrees and awards and all that kind of stuff. I got a placard that says I talked in Texas sitting up there. I showed it to her before we came over there. See my placard, you know. I can't show her the one in Canada because she talked there too. And screwed up my talk, as my wife said this morning, you know. Screwed up my got there and talk, you know. But the amazing part is that Jenny graduated summa cum laude. Now that's 4.0, 4.0, 4.0, 4.0. Now it was always there. It took Alcoholics Anonymous to bring it out. You know what I mean? It was there. It almost reminds me of that Prego commercial. It's in there. It's in there, baby. And if you're new here tonight, you know, and I don't care what you've used, man, or how you used it, I want to tell you there is no experience on this planet for us alky addicts, and I'll use the expression, I'll be a little redundant, tautological, all that kind of stuff, but I'll be that tonight. But I want to tell you, there's no experience in the world more rewarding than taking the time, one day at a time, to become who you are yourself. And you'll never, ever, ever really have any success in life until you become you. Whatever it is that made the universe, made us all different, and we pretend like we're, you know, we don't have any leaders in AA who run a group. We don't have anybody like that. Not in AA, we don't. You know, there's nobody in AA tells you how to dress. Nobody in AA. Chuck never once ever said, you're not dressed right. He never ever said that to me. He just gave me a hug and a kiss. He said, you're doing a good job, kid. I think you got your toe in the door, you know. I get a 25-year cake, and he said, I think you're catching on. You know, things like that. You know. Never wanted to give me too much, you know. And the funny thing about it is there are 4 young ladies. One of them was about as sick as you can get, and I met her. It was Jenny's baby. This gal was going nowhere except to the morgue. You know, she was about 100 pounds underweight, which is pretty skinny, you know. How much do bones weigh, you know? Anorexics were scared of her, you know. And because Jenny went to college, by God, she did. And guess what? Summa cum laude. And it wasn't too long, some large company, I won't mention the name of it, in Southern California, offered her a job for a lot of money and a free car and all that kind of stuff. Now she runs the company in Southern California. It's one of the biggest companies, and she was #1 last 2 years in a row. Yeah? And she's always saying, at meetings with tears running down her eyes, if it wasn't for my wonderful sponsor, I'd be in a closet peeing my pants, you know. And her other babies all did the same thing. Every one of them went to school and graduated. She got one that's just about to become a nurse. That's the last of them. And they all did it because she did it. Isn't that funny in AA? We get courage we never had before, you know. And then we find ourselves feeling away. There's nothing in the world more exciting to me than to see a man give another man a cake who's learned to feel and to cry, give him a kiss on the cheek, and tell the guy he loves him, I love you, man. And the guy give you a hug back and say, I love you too, man. And you mean it, you know. It's not the same kind of thing. You know, it's not let's get in the back seat and do the 4th step. It's not one of those kind of things, you know. Not one of those kind of things at all. It's a kind of a loving, and I find the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous that here we learn the great magic of life. And I got 2 neighbors next to me. They're nice people. They really are. For non-alcoholics, they're nice people. But you can't do a hell of a lot with them because they're both non-alcoholics. And both of them get depressed a lot. And I just wish God make them alcoholic so we can take them somewhere. They can do something about their life. They haven't got any place to go except the Shell gas station. Yeah. Or Union Oil, whatever the case may be. Yeah. And here in Alcoholics Anonymous, we learn to do and learn to get and learn to give what it is we're looking for. Jimmy Kinnon used to tell me, he says, miracles become commonplace in AA. You know, they're always talking about things that happened in a book that was written a long time ago about somebody going into a cave and raising them up. I've seen the dead risen 100 times here. 100 times, you know. A little Chicano friend of mine came in from one of the prisons. Tattoos everywhere. Had written on his neck, Viva la Raza, you know. Tough guy. He was one of the heavyweight fighters, man, in that camp, you know. And I got to know him when he first came in. That's when they first opened Impact. And he and I got to be awfully good friends. We got on a panel together, you know. He figured we would go out to CRC, that's the dope fiend prison, carry the message. I would talk to the Patties, he would talk to the Chicans. And on the way out there, I had on the, what used to be 105.1, which was then the jazz station. And all of a sudden, they started playing a little Latin jazz. And he said, you dig that? I said, man, I dig that Latin jazz. He said, you pretty cool for Patty, man. And he's a loving buddy today, you know what I mean? And one day, somebody called him up and says, we got a 12-step call for you at Universal Studios. You'll have to go over there and see this guy. He's got a cocaine problem. So he went over there. I won't tell you his name, it's DT. But he went over there to make this 12-step call, and he had a little bandana on his head, all these tattoos on him and like that, and all these kind of stuff. And the producer looked at him and he said, "Do you think you could play a Mexican mafia part?" Danny said, "I was in the Mexican mafia. I guess I could." By the way, it was started by an Irishman. Joe Morgan was his name. They call me Joe Morgan in Lapawinnie. And so the guy said, "Well, could you play it?" He said, "Yeah." So I gave him a part. And every once in a while, about at least once a week or once every 2 weeks, I turn the TV on, and there's old Danny grinning at me. And I was over talking a couple of years ago over Rodeo Drive. It's a big meeting, great big meeting, 3 times bigger than this one. Great big meeting, you know. And I'm growing up hugging people. I'm a hugger, not a shaker. I'm a hugger. Yeah, I'm a hugger. I'm hugging. And all of a sudden I look over and there's Danny. And I said, "Just a minute, I want to hug my favorite actor. Danny the badass man, you know." And he's a lovable son of a bitch. He came out of the slam, you know, and it took him 15 years to quit walking the big yard. That's a hint for a few friends of mine that are here tonight. Still walking the big yard, huh, baby? Huh? Yeah. Anyway, so the miracles never cease to happen here, you know. And the greatest miracle of all, I think, is what Chuck Chamberlain used to say: if you uncover, discover, and discard. He said, you finally find out what it is you're missing out of your life. And I one day was listening to Bobby Earl, who used to be my baby, but he fired me when he could pronounce anonymity before I could. And I heard him talk about his mother putting shoes on him were too tight, and she almost crippled him, and he knew goddamn well his mother didn't love him, and his dad didn't love him. And he was convinced that when he grew up that if your mom and dad don't love you, nobody will love you. Now, you understand that feeling? And right away I knew what it was. I called Chuck on the phone. I said, "I found out what it was. I don't feel loved." He said, "You want love in your life?" I said, "Oh, man, do I want love in my life?" He said, "You really want love in your life?" I said, "Yeah." "You read the books?" "I read them all." "I don't have love in my life. You want it?" I said, "Yeah, and I'm waiting." He said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you." I knew he was going to tell me. He said, "I want you to quit looking right now. Don't you look anymore. Don't you look one more day for love. What I want you to do is to start giving away right as of this minute. Give it away. Call somebody on the phone. Tell you love them. Wherever you go, bring some love with you. And the only people you'll notice in AA that have the love are the ones who give it away." Isn't that funny, huh? And the only reason the rest of the people are here is because those selfish bastards that are hogging all that love and giving it to you, you know what I mean? You're saying, "Oh, isn't he wonderful? Isn't he wonderful?" Do it yourself. Turn around and hug the dude next to you. 12 and 12, huh? The last page of the 12 and 12. You know what it says in there? It says something about the divine paradox. You're only sober a week. The guy sitting over there has only been sober a day. Go over to him and tell him, "Don't take the first drink." And he probably will go out and have a drink, but you won't. You are what you give away, you know. And I'm going to close this with a little thing that Bill Wilson once got. He got a letter from a psychoanalyst who inadvertently was responsible for Alcoholics Anonymous. He talked to one guy who talked to one guy who talked to Ebby Thatcher who talked to Bill Wilson. But in 1971 he wrote him a letter. And he wrote it in Latin. And he said, "Veritas contra veritum." And then he put under it in English what it meant. He said that alcoholism, the only possible antidote, is love. A spiritual life. That's what he said. And Bill had found that out by then. And what is a spiritual life? The capacity to get out of yourself long enough to take the time to care for somebody that's in worse condition than you are. That's what AA is all about. It's not talking from podiums. The next group I'm going to is so small, I've had to invite Lapawinnie up there. It is small. And of course, if the speaker don't show up, there's nobody there, you know. But I want to tell you, my friend Mary P., who runs Beacon House over there, is one of my dearest, oldest friends, and I wish she could be here tonight, but her daughter's graduating from some school back east, and she had to be there, or I would have seen her tonight and give her a hug. I know more people today that I love. I love more damn people, you know. And there's some people who don't love me because I love people, you know. But that's too damn bad. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do anyway. If you want to hit me in the mouth for being a lover, hit me in the mouth. Then I'll hug from the side. But anyway, thanks for putting up with my nonsense. Because of you, I'm me. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a me. So you don't need me. I need you, because without you, I don't have a me. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.